Hey everyone, and welcome to Conquer the Mirror Demon. My name is Tanja Andersen, and I am your host. And today we have a special person that really are expert on a topic that will dear to my heart. And his name is Dr. Freeman Schaub. Schaub. I was like, oh my god.
Schaub.
Schaub. I freeze there. I was like,
I know it's difficult.
hey, my friend.
Oh, is this hello? Okay. Hello, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You're most welcome. And to your audience, why I picked Dr. Friedman was because when I come across his homepage, he really talking about this, like, of the talk we're going into, like about the victim and really be your own creator of your reality. And for me, victim has been a huge nerd and huge piece of my life for 30 plus years. Has been so challenging for me to get out of that state of being that was so in my whole body. So I was so blessed by to see there was someone that really talk honest about it. He's also sharing his personal thoughts around his own life, and I really appreciate that because he's a beautiful man, and he's a man that is connected with his emotions and honest and bold and authentic about where he is, what he worked with, some tools and tips. And it's a huge blessing to have him on this summit and give him forward to you guys that seen this interview. So Dr. Freeman, share a little about who you are so the audience get like a taste of who you are as a person.
Well, thank you for this beautiful introduction. I love it. It's better than I ever could do. Basically, I am someone who has felt victimized by covert anxiety for a long time. You know, there's the anxiety where you just feel like all the time you're small, you want to hide out, you feel like there is, in the morning, the first thing you have, where is the anxiety? When will it attack me? And then there is this anxiety that is always with you, but you feel like you can manage because you kind of counter it, So for me, it was like anxiety based on the belief I can only be loved and I can only be accepted if I'm really good, if I'm performing well, if I'm successful. And so I knew as long as I do all the things that I think I have to do in order to get approval, my anxiety will be kept at bay. But it was ultimately the driving force through my time, in medical school and as a physician and then in research. And so what I noticed is just that the anxiety becomes my full-time job. How to react to the anxiety is pretty much all that I was doing. And looking back, I did notice that the anxiety had been there, not only with me most of the times, but with most colleagues, most of my patients, most people were struggling with anxiety. It's a huge issue. So if you're dealing with anxiety, you're not alone because there's a big, majority of people in the world that are struggling exactly with the same way. So to make a long story short, I quit it all. I quit research, I quit medicine, and I went on the quest to first find myself because I had no clue who I was. If you're only trying to fight against an emotion, you're kind of not really ask yourself, what do I want? What's good for me? What do I like? Who am I? All those questions you kind of ignore and you just keep on plowing forward, hoping to get a little bit peace. And then at some point, I just found myself empty. I found myself lost. So the first quest was finding myself, finding something to hold on to inside of me, not just outside of me. And then I really felt strongly about I need to help people with anxiety. I need to help people overcome that anxiety, not by battling it or fighting it or seeing it as the one that, victimizes us, the emotion that's stronger than us, but more as an opportunity because looking back, without the anxiety, I wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be talking. my life would be miserable. The anxiety certainly helped me so much. And that's why I see the anxiety more as a misunderstood friend than the perpetrator who victimizes us. And that's my mission, to help you to see it this way so that you feel more empowered with anxiety and not so disempowered.
So powerful, so powerful. And I really love what you're saying. What I hear, there was a podcast today that was like, you get to lose yourself to find yourself. I was like, oh, that was interesting. And there was also a little bit connected with you. What you're sharing is like around this victim, because I have judged myself so heavily, like also did self-harm to myself in the judgments on physically on my body, when I really feel lost because I feel there was something wrong with me, since I feel so lost, and I create anxiety around it because I'm not fitting in this like frame of society. So I'm so excited for you going into this topic. And the topic we are going to talk about today is how to shift from victim to being the creator of your reality. So let's go back in time together. What is one episode around your life where you were stuck in to be a victim, where you also choose to judge yourself, where you feel really there was a big challenge in you in life on that point?
Well, I mean, it was certainly when life started to become serious. When I was, before the age of 11, I did not see life very serious. I saw it as a beautiful playground full of magic, full of wonderful things to explore. I also was very intuitive. And I think, looking back, I certainly was able to see energy, because I didn't see walls as walls. They were kind of moving and, fluid. And my mom always says, you just said I had a fever. So that's probably the explanation why. I don't know. But it just felt like something was more exciting at that time. So I wasn't really bothered by doing homework or, thinking about school. And all of a sudden you get tossed into high school. And then you get confronted with a parent's ambitions for you. And I didn't have that great first math test. Actually, I pretty much had a D, which is very low. And my parents were disgusted with me. And for the first time, I really felt like not only their anger and how they yelled at me and told me, who do I think I am, all this kind of stuff. It was more like their not believing in me and being so disappointed in me. That hurt me, and that really shook me up. And I thought, after maybe 5 minutes, they're going to stop, but it just kept on going and going and going. And that is a time for me where I felt I lost my innocence. And my innocence was this happy-go-lucky, open-minded, open-hearted self. And from that point on, I did feel like I had to really be serious, always worry about the next test, being, hyper vigilant. And that was one big area. And the funny thing is, before all of this, I already was a peacemaker of the family, because my name is Friedemann, which is man of peace. So I already had that job, because my parents were fighting like cats and dogs. And my job was somehow to be the mediator, like between Palestine and Israel, going back and forth and always trying to avoid the war. That's when I was already 6 years old. I had to do this. So that did not take my innocence. It was somehow I accepted that, yeah, there is fighting, there is screaming. But then when there was this doubting me and my worthiness and my almost like my safety, because all of a sudden I was not getting approved of from my parents, that really shook me up. And maybe this is what many of you can relate to, that when you had your first anxiety and all of a sudden it was in question, am I lovable? Am I good enough? Am I really safe? That something inside, and this is the subconscious, your inner protector kicks in and say, oh, enough with fun and games. We need to go in survival mode. And anxiety is one expression of this survival mode. So I have been certainly living from that point on in a form of survival mode. And that really takes a lot of not only security out of yourself, but it also takes a lot of energy. You just feel like constantly on the edge and never really totally yourself.
It's so true. You're really speaking to. I was on anxiety pills in 2012 for half a year, and one point I threw it in the garbage because it was doing more harm to my mindset and to my world than good, and that shift my world completely. And it's all about a choice, as you know, like we get to choose it, and when we choose it, that is the power of the choice. It will shift in our mind because where our focus go, energy flows. So share a little bit about where in your life was this point where everything changed for where you just share to change to choose to work on it.
Well, there were 2 points. One was when I had a lot of panic attacks because of the idea that I'm going to be stuck in a job, which was in a big university hospital in cardiology, that I really felt like was taking so much energy out because it was super stressful, which, is normal, I guess, but I didn't like it. And the other one was that I felt more and more I'm numbing out because of the stress, numbing out because of the anxiety, numbing out because of always having to face situations where potentially your patients can die. And so I couldn't really always feel like, yes, my heart is open and I'm going to embrace everyone because, it only was increasing the stress. And I remember that sometimes I was really sitting with patients way longer, at 10 o'clock at night, because I did feel like I don't even know them. I knew them on paper, but I didn't really know them as a person. And so that made me feel just empty, doing a job that is highly revered. My ego was very happy. Oh, you wear a stethoscope and a white coat. That's pretty cool. But my heart, my soul were feeling more and more disengaged. And so I had these panic attacks that says, do you want to really be in this job for 25 more years? So that was a wake-up call. And then I think the other one was when I did take a break, the universe showed up for me, giving me a break of 2 years to do some research. And I happened to go to the US. And then I realized, man, I have no stethoscope because I'm in a lab. There is, I'm not in the status of the doctor. I'm just like a little postdoc. And I had no clue what I was doing anyhow. So I was like totally stripped away from everything I was holding on to was my identity. And I was so insecure. I mean, I was really, when you're insecure and you're so self-aware, not in a good way, where you're looking from the outside at yourself and you always wonder what other people may be thinking of you. And that was like a constant. And that insecurity made me realize I have no clue of who I am. And I feel certainly uncomfortable in my skin, especially now that I don't have this little armor of my identity that I was holding on to. And then I stumbled into yoga and meditation, Kundalini yoga, because, that was the only time I could go to a yoga class. And that was the only time that was offered. So I got there, again, very much universe showing up. And it really forced me to go inside and face myself and feel myself. You know how when you're anxious and when you're on busy mode and when you just keep on going and holding on to some extra external, security that hopefully you get from your job, from your money, from other people, you don't even feel your body anymore. You don't even notice, that you're living in a physical form. So this yoga and meditation made me really connect to myself again. And I felt energy flowing and I felt just, that my body needed attention. And that's how this journey began. And there are many steps in between, but I just became so fascinated by how anxiety is directly connected to whether we live inside of ourselves or outside of ourselves. And the further away we are from ourselves, the more anxious we feel. So it was like a coming home to myself to work with my anxiety.
Powerful, so powerful. And what is the fourth step for your wisdom you have now to shift from victim to being the creator of your reality?
Well, I think, you want to really think about first that being a victim is not a reality in itself. I mean, we have been victimized. And yes, emotions can feel like they are victimizing us. Trauma, the parents, people that hurt and betrayed us, they can victimize us. And it's a mistake to not honor the wounds that others caused us or that circumstances caused us. But that doesn't mean that our identity is being the victim. So we have to discern between, do we want to be in this mode of being a victim, which basically means the past defines you, or do you want to honor that it's your responsibility to take care of the wounds that you have inside, or the confusions, or whatever it is that got you lost, and then automatically feel more empowered because you realize it's your job and it's your life, and you are not smaller than whatever people did to you or whatever happened to you. What defines you is really what comes next. And so the 4 steps is, first step is really taking responsibility and being aware of the fact that we can always discover more about ourselves when we are facing ourselves than when we are distracted by what other people did to us, or, how dare they, or why me, or all the self-blame and shame and looking for resolutions that we have been doing in the past. So really just saying, I'm going to figure out what is it inside of me that needs attention, and what is it inside of me that really tells me this is who I am. The second one is that we are also really noticing how we are perpetuating this victimization, where we talk negatively about ourselves, where we are constantly thinking about other people and what they have been doing, how we are constantly somehow treating ourselves as just how other people treated us. So, I treated myself exactly with the disbelief my parents had in me. I also believed I was not good enough. I was not worthy. I only deserved a little bit of happiness when I had all done perfectly. I just took on that belief. And so realizing there is a belief, and there are negative thoughts, and there are also certain actions and responses that are perpetuating them, and gradually resolving those and changing those. That is a very important step. And that's certainly something that gets us out, because what we focus on, like you said, is really our reality. And yesterday, there was a big, I'm living in the south of France, very quaint, 700 people, not much going on. It's nice. In the evening, you hear the crickets, and, I hear, the horses eating their hay. So it's 4 days of a techno festival that comes every year to this town with 50,000 people. And so they are like, enormous amount of people. And until 4 o'clock in the morning, they are playing the boom, 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 boom. And it really is like intense. The first night, the horses are always like, oh my God, what's going on here? And so yesterday I made a little experiment where I looked at my cat, the woods, which I'm living in, and in the far, I could see the light of the techno festival. And I chose to focus on, the purring of the cat. And when I focused on the purring, everything kind of disappeared. When I focused on the crickets, where actually were louder, or they were louder at the techno festival. So all this boom, boom, boom. And I focused on the boom, boom, boom. Then that, of course, became, so we choose our reality dependent on our focus. And our focus is really largely dependent on what we are choosing to see. So when I, for example, say to myself, I'm a victim, naturally people around us become perpetrators. The people that don't really understand us, or the people that are a little bit more maybe like busy and don't pay attention to us, or the people that say, hey, you can do better, you should just do this and this. Oh no, you don't get it. So they become the perpetrator. So when we are in the victim paradigm, we naturally look for getting victimized again and looking for the perpetrator again. So realizing we choose our reality by saying, no, I'm empowered. I choose. Yes, I see my anxiety. It's there. I listen to what it says. I try to understand where it comes from. And then I calmly and compassionately address this anxiety. I say, like, for example, in my case with the, you have to do better, falling behind, you're not really good enough. And then just reminding myself, no, I know this is a little tiny self inside of me talking because this part of me still feels not worthy. And then just reminding myself of my innate worth, and that it's not about what I do, but who I am, because I'm a human being and not a human doing. And things like that. They are not like light switches turning it all off, but they are options. They are openings that your mind gradually feels like, oh, there is another reality to go into. And then just briefly, I know I talk a lot, but the last thing I wanted to say is that we have to be aware of that sometimes we hold on to the victim mode because it feels two things. One is more comfortable. And that's kind of a sad thing, where we are feeling like, well, I don't have to change because I have, been in this mode of, well, I'm anxious, I'm insecure, I'm depressed for such a long time. So getting out of it takes a lot of effort. And when I get out of it, people expect stuff from me. All of a sudden, I'm supposed to have friends, I'm supposed to date, I'm supposed to do all these things. So there is inside of us something that says, no, let's just stay safe and comfortable in that little comfort zone. It's like, make it through another day rather than making your life fulfilling. And this is not anything you choose necessarily consciously, but this is happening inside of us. This is a deeper subconscious reaction to the past, where the option of a wonderful, happy, joy and purposeful life is just taken away. Because it feels like all you can do is duck your head, make sure to not be a target, and just, hopefully get through another day unharmed. And the second thing is that sometimes we are waiting for the people that hurt us to apologize, to pay their debt. And as long as we are suffering, we think, well, they must see. Look what they did to us. We are still struggling. We're still anxious. We are still dealing with addiction, and that's their fault. And isn't that the proof enough for them to finally come around and say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But often the people just moved on. They don't really care, or they don't even live anymore. So we have to also realize that there is something inside of us looking for redemption, but all we get is punishing ourselves. And that is certainly not what our life is supposed to be. So if we're willing to let go of the debt others have accumulated and forgive them, meaning giving up of all of that, then you're really starting to be free and become the creator of your reality again.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I can really feel when you share that, like, for me to be a victim, it was, to be honest, it was first in this year, I choose to let go of my need to be a victim. It was so scary for me to let go of it, because who am I when I let go of this identity to live as a victim, or live as to save, to be like, to be safe every day? Like, who am I if I choose to let go of that? Like, I feel there was a huge hole, like, with air. That's like, who is that person? And it was so scary for me to cross that line and see the beauty, because my mindset thought there was nothing on that side, because I've lived like my whole life as a victim behind closed door, and I was so good to fake it to make it. Like, people think I have like a good life, nowhere to go, and I know how to say the words so that people believe me. The truth was, when I closed the door, I was in sadness, I was a victim, I was doing things to myself, and to cross the line has been so uncomfortable and so free. Like, to cross it, to see the beauty in it, to really owning myself and say, I chose my past and I own it and I choose who I am. And that is my responsibility to choose that every day who I am, because I'm not defined by my flaws or my mistake I've done for 5 minutes ago. I can choose who I am right now.
You know, that's so beautiful that you share this. And I do feel that it is important to mention that this freedom is not easy. Because a lot of people feel like, well, the resolution of the pain or the victimization should feel really good. But it is, I mean, it feels good eventually.
Yeah, of
But
course.
the work is really to make that commitment to take responsibility. And I often compare it to people that have been imprisoned for a long time. And even though who wants to be in prison, it's certainly a terrible place. But when they're out, many people do feel also really terrible because there is this overwhelming freedom and responsibility waiting for them. And nothing is really, told them, this is what you need to do. This is when you go to bed. This is what's allowed. This is what's not allowed. And so they feel often just overwhelmed by all these choices and subconsciously or consciously choose to do something to go back. And that's what we often do too. I see it when I work with clients that there is a moment where they have to make a choice. Is it more comfortable to go back and playing it safe and small and holding on to this? I know my identity as an anxious or victim person. I know what to expect when I continue to suffer, but I don't know who I am when I'm not this person. And then all of a sudden, I am responsible for my feelings. I am responsible for my behavior. That is something that is hard. And that's why I feel it's not about healing, really. It's about growing. We have to grow out of that pattern. And for me, it definitely wasn't going overnight, and it took a while. And there are different layers to this growth. And I think, sometimes you're actually afraid of yourself because you're afraid of what it is, what you're going to discover. Oh my God, who's going to show up there? What is that person? I mean, I was afraid of, if I'm going to let go of my anxiety, will I end up, homeless? Because I have no drive. I only stare at, bees and plants and don't really want to do anything, just like I was as a little child. And so that scared me. Is a happy-go-lucky part of me just overtaking any form of responsibility. But it wasn't. It just made life nicer, and, life also much more joyful and playful and colorful again. So discovering ourselves just takes some time. But think about when you are, dating someone, or when you're creating a relationship with someone, you don't necessarily know that person right away. Take some time. And to feel really comfortable with your beloved, that takes time. So it's very similar. At the beginning, you may just date yourself, and then you just start to befriend yourself. And eventually you fall in love with yourself. And then you don't want to let go anymore.
Yeah, so beautiful. And to you, dear audience, it is so important for you to do life and choose someone that support you, and choose someone that have faced, to be a victim, that have faced this topic. Dr. Freeman, as me, we are talking about, is so important. You choose someone that have gone the path, that know the blueprint, so that this person can really support you in where you are. And Dr. Freeman is amazing in that area, and it's an area we most experience. So before we're ending this amazing interview, I know you have a free gift to the dear audience that is watching. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about the subconscious, and there is so much more to talk about. But the subconscious is ultimately that what keeps you stuck, because that's the inner protector. That's the source of your beliefs. That's the one that said early on in life, this is how you need to be in order to survive. And so the subconscious needs help, because otherwise it just keeps on doing what it has been doing for a long time. So in order to help, there are different ways, there are different processes, and I'm sharing 2 processes with you in this free gift. One is the process that, by working with the subconscious and speaking the language of the subconscious, you're able to never, ever feel stuck again. And that's just a complete, easy and powerful unstuck process. So whenever there is a situation, a person, or yourself feeling like, oh my God, that's it, I'm going to have to be in this forever, nothing's going to change, that's a catastrophe. And with this process, you're able to get a complete different perspective, and you can free yourself from that feeling victimized and stuck by this idea of this is too much or I'm powerless. And the second process is something you mentioned before about essence and connecting to who we truly are. If you ever were curious to know what that is, this process guides you to your essence. It guides you to that what is beyond your physical form, beyond the brain and the heart and the body. It's really getting you to the core of that. And you will be amazed to find out who that is and what you can discover there.
Amen. Amen. So the last word for you to the audience, what will that be, Dr. Freeman?
Well, it's only the beginning. You know, when you feel anxious, just be grateful for being aware of that you have this anxiety or any kind of emotion that you actually want to demonize. Realize this is me noticing that something inside of me is calling me. It's calling me to look inside, because 99.9% of us are distracted by the outside. The outside is so loud, so demanding, so overwhelming. We don't even hear our own little heartbeats anymore, just like me yesterday with a boom, 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 boom. So we have to really have sometimes strong emotions that pull us back to ourselves and that say, hey, you haven't really checked on yourself. You haven't really addressed this wound. You're still living in the past. You're still believing you're a victim. And then identifying what the messages really are and helping to resolve their needs. That's the real journey of growth. And that is, I think, the reason why we're here. We're not here to consume, distract, or produce, or all the things that we think we are here for. We are here to grow into our best selves, grow into our most authentic selves, because especially now, when you really look at the state of the world and how everything is kind of going into, it's almost like two directions, towards the dark or towards the light. We have an opportunity and a responsibility to be our most light and our most evolved being, so that we can help the planet to heal, to be more sustainable, to make it more equal for all of us, and really overcome this discrepancy that creates only more pain and suffering and war and death. We all have a responsibility to show up. And that's really why we need to be our best selves, not the most anxious self, not the most victimized selves, but the most empowered selves. And I think you're listening to this and watching this exactly because you know that this is the truth.
Amen. And to the audience, where you get hold at this freebie and links to his amazing work, go back in your newsletter or look down below this video. There you find all the information you get to know and also the free gifts. We thank you for bottom of my heart for you to be here. And thank you so much, Dr. Freeman, to be here and being a voice of healing to me. Definitely to me, I can feel that my being around Victor, like heal like a small piece of the story. And also for the audience, thank you so much for being who you are and being powerful and vulnerable and just be an amazing person.
Oh, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share my story.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Have an amazing day.